Good day, listener. This is your host with the most, JJ, coming at you on the JJ Meets World podcast, where we are highlighting the Fargo Film Festival. Entering its 20th year, Greg Carlson, who has done everything except for probably sweep up the popcorn itself because he's too busy hanging out and getting ready for the next film festival, will give us the details on the things you don't want to miss, some ideas of things that might not be on your radar that should be, and all sorts of great insider info for the Fargo Film Festival. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle's sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
One of my favorite filmmakers of all time is Joe Dante. Joe Dante is the man who made Piranha, which was a cheap ripoff of the Jaws hype that was out there. They're like, we need kind of a water-based villain movie. He's like, yeah, okay. And so Roger Corman got him involved in making the movie Piranha. He made the movie Gremlins, which I still find to be one of the funniest, like, dark comedies of all time. It's scary. It still scares me. He made Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is the closest I've seen to a cartoon real world adaptation that actually works and I enjoy. He made The Explorers, which is about like the 3 kids who find a like a spaceship. Okay. And they are going around a spaceship. Okay. He made Inner Space with Martin Short and Dennis Quaid, where Dennis Quaid is shrunk down and gets injected into Martin Short. It's a great movie. Not every single movie Joe Dante has made is great, but every single movie he's made has been infused with this fun and this style. And I love what he does. And he is such a huge fan of old style Hollywood that he formed a website called Trailers from Hell. And what they do is they invite other filmmakers and people in the industry to come and give a mini commentary over a trailer to a movie and tell why they liked it and a little bit of history. It is a film buff's it's definitely a mecca for them. You got to make a pilgrimage to Trailers from Hell at some point and watch some of the stuff that they have going on there.
Have you done that?
Oh yeah, I ordered a t-shirt.
Okay.
Which is hard because I only wear tall sizes and they didn't have any tall sizes. By the way, if you are making merchandise, get into the world of offering a tall size. There are large torsoed people out there who need that extra inch or two of fabric. Just throwing that one out there. But I have such a respect for him that for years I have been telling people who sit on the Fargo Film Festival board, you guys should honor Joe Dante. And they kind of say, well, why? And I come back to this. His movies get replayed over and over and over again. Gremlins is the type of movie that changed the way the MPAA saw films. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins are the two movies that they say, yep, we need a PG-13 rating because PG doesn't cut it and R is a little too harsh. His movies get played year after year. The Fargo Theater just did a Gremlins screening not too long ago. And I think that people have an affinity for what he's done. And we're entering a world where we're talking about new classics. Gremlins is almost 40 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's closer to 40 than it is to 30 for sure. I think it came out in 1983.
Okay.
So we're close to the 40-year mark.
Well, that's 1 year away from the year you were born, right?
I was born in 1983.
Okay.
So it makes
it's as old as you. So
oh,
however
Jesus.
old you are.
I'm 36.
That's
I'll
how
be
old
37
it is.
this year.
That's how old
so
it is.
37 years old. And I think that sometimes it's just fun to talk about the things that we like to honor and we like to see. Some of my favorite Fargo Film Festival memories have been little tiny shorts that go on to inspire bigger feature films. One of the best things I ever saw at the Fargo Film Festival was a movie called After the Credits. It's a short film where you see the very end of a romantic comedy where this guy has stopped this girl from moving, has run through the airport and stopped this girl from moving to Fiji, and they embrace and they kiss, and it says the end, and then the credits starts rolling, and you're like, well, the movie was a minute and a half long. Well, the credits roll, and then after the credits, it shows this couple. So this woman has turned all of her money into international currency, so she doesn't have enough money for a cab. He's like, I didn't drive here, and well, what are we gonna do now? I don't know. Well, I'm getting arrested because I ran through security without a boarding ticket, and so all of these things that you kind of think about, and I think what an incredibly inventive film, and I never would have seen that without something like the Fargo Film Festival or Joe Dante igniting my love of being able to watch some of these shorts and getting to experience that. Greg Carlson is our guest today, and we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Fargo Film Festival. Mm-hmm. What grew from a single screen and a couple of movies into a very well-respected film festival that is curated for an entire year before a single movie begins to show, and has multiple screens and has brought in filmmakers from all over the world and film lovers from all over the world. It's a very special festival, and I think it's a real jewel in the cap of Fargo. If you're listening to this from outside the area, you should come and check it out. I can't believe that there are people in Fargo who've never attended a single Fargo Film Festival
What
event.
are you doing with your lives? Get out there.
And here's the thing. Maybe sitting for 5 days in a theater isn't your jam. Come out to some of the evening screenings. They are fun, and it creates this great feeling where you're experiencing movies with other people. When someone is sitting in a director's chair, I don't think they're thinking, how am I going to get someone who's watching this while they're waiting for a load of laundry to finish and on their cell phone? They're thinking, how am I going to terrify an entire crowd of people? How am I going to get the entire crowd to laugh so hard that I have to actually wait to deliver the follow-up punchline? Mm-hmm. They're thinking about it with an audience, and there is no better audience than going and seeing a movie with a film festival audience. Greg is a film festival in his own right. That man has curated so many amazing moments for people, and this year is no different for the Fargo Film Festival. It's a group of dedicated individuals putting on one of the year's best shows.
Yeah, so we've asked Greg to come in today to basically talk with us about this year's film festival, and he's been an intrinsic part of the festival since its beginning. And cares very, very deeply, not just about film festivals in general, but this one in particular. He actually takes the time, to go to major film festivals, to see how they run, to see films there, to talk to people, to scope out potential films to come to this one. There are a few members of the Fargo Film Festival that do that regularly. So it's a great festival because it's propped up by fantastic volunteers who put their lives into this. So Greg is a great resource to be talking about what's coming in this year, 2020, the Fargo Film Festival.
Get your highlight sheets ready, everyone. So let's get this going. Fargo Film Festival 2020 coming up in March. Here's some highlights.
JJ Meets World.
Greg Carlson, welcome back. You know the studios well enough. We're going to give you a key to get in here anytime you want.
As of this episode, he is the most appeared guest.
I was feeling a little blue when I knew that Mike Rezel had been on more episodes than I.
Yes.
So, Mike, someday you and I together on an episode.
Let's talk about the Fargo Film Festival. Let's give some brief history there. If someone has never attended, or maybe they went a decade ago,
Right.
and it's time to come back.
This is the 20th one. This is the 20th Fargo Film Festival. And it is a 5-day. It grew from just being a weekend event to a 5-day, Tuesday through Saturday film festival that is it is the single largest fundraiser for the nonprofit Fargo Theater annually. And it's also just a great community event for people who love movies.
And it's become a really well-known film festival in the circuit too.
It is, yeah. We aim to provide the visiting filmmakers and guests with an experience with so much hospitality that they can't help but tell all of their filmmaker friends, this is a great festival to come and show your work. It doesn't hurt that we're at the Fargo Theater, and that's, a lot of film festivals, even at our size, they're still showing movies like in hotel conference rooms. That's the environment that some film festivals are using. So the Fargo Theater is the calling card that gets the filmmakers excited about having their work seen in that auditorium.
And it's great to be on a marquee that says, the Fargo Film Festival, and it doesn't say the Fargo Film Festival and welcome Rotary.
Yeah. Right.
That would be
That's
on
true.
some other things.
Yep.
Tucker and I both had the great pleasure of actually working the Fargo Film Festival several
Right.
years.
I
attended
remember. Yep.
numerous ones.
Yes.
So let's talk about the Fargo Film Festival 2020. Let's talk about some highlights, some things that you think people really should make sure to add to their list to see.
Yeah, each evening starting on Tuesday, there's a showcase, and the evening showcases are single sessions that for a regular grown-up ticket, it's $10 to come and see that, which is a bargain. If you're a student at any age, elementary through college, it's only $5 to see those sessions. So we have, showcase happening every night, and I have, I'll just run through them, and you can interrupt me with questions that you might have about them. The opening night this year are 3 short films. Each one of them was the winner in its respective category. So we start with an animated short called Mind My Mind, which is, it's not an animated movie for kids per se. Emily likes to say that this is animation for grown-ups. A lot of what we show is animation for grown-ups. But it's a lovely story about a person who has Asperger's syndrome trying to figure out and navigate a romance. And it's pretty, so you're inside the person's head, and then you get to sort of step back and see objectively the experience they're having. It's great. Sean Volk was the animation chair, and he did a wonderful job getting a bunch of movies that are, 2 Oscar-nominated movies. Mm-hmm. And then we're also showing the Oscar winner from this year in narrative short, which was also our category's winner in narrative short. It's called The Neighbor's Window by Marshall Curry. And it's kind of it certainly has elements or an homage to Rear Window, because the setup is that a young married couple with kids looks out through past the garden area of their apartment complex to see these newlyweds who've moved in across the way and apparently have a life much more exciting. But things may not be what they seem. It's really, really good movie. And then we're showing a documentary short called Raw Tuba, which is about a kid from inner city Baltimore who became the first African-American tuba PhD and master player with the symphony orchestra. And it is great. If you have ever wondered what it might sound like to combine tuba and hip hop, this is the movie for you.
It's about darn time.
I loved it.
So what makes something a short? What are the parameters?
We use the same parameters as the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, so it has to be 40 minutes or less than 40 minutes. And if it's more than 40 minutes, then it's considered a feature-length movie. So we try to have some of the we have movies as short as just a couple minutes, in those categories, all the way up to the full 30 minutes plus. But then beyond the 40, we're talking feature length, and then we try to make sure that we can show about 100 movies in the 5 days, give or take. Yeah, and that's not counting the 2 minute, which is another 50.
Really love is when people take the program and they really dissect it and they figure out, okay, I'm going to see this and I'm going to see this, and then I'm going to have to miss this because I really want to see this
right.
instead. And that
That's
is true. That is something that takes place at other film festivals.
Almost all.
So I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's the Fargo Film Festival. It's the Fargo Film Festival. It's no big deal. And it's not. This film festival is it's expertly curated by a group of people who just put their heart and soul into this I imagine you guys celebrate on Saturday night, and then all of a sudden you're planning for next year's festival.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's grown to a year-round event where people who work in volunteer capacities are traveling to film festivals, watching independent films, seeing movies that don't have distribution. Because when people ask why should I go to a film festival, the content you're seeing is expertly made, professionally made material that does not yet have an outlet. And when you're thinking about all those short films, they don't play in theaters typically. Except at Oscar time when they have the roundup of the, the nominees. We usually, in today's movie-going world, don't see shorts before features unless it's attached to a, Pixar film or something like that.
Or you buy some kind of Blu-ray retrospective that includes it. And, which is a real shame because there are great movies out there that people are missing.
That's what we think. Yeah, that's why you go to a film festival for sure. So Wednesday night, we're going to invite the filmmakers and subject of Belkovich, the documentary about Shane Belkovich from Bismarck, who's been in the international news this last week.
I was going to say, that's a real coup for you guys.
It was. The timing was great. And, Shane has been all over his social media to talk about the sort of fallout after the proposal that the Greta Thunberg mural be placed in Bismarck, and now is on its way to Fargo and will coincide. Apparently the unveiling, as I understand it, and I think I'm correct on this, the mural on Front Street Tap Room will be unveiled the day of the screening on that Wednesday, the 18th. So that's happening, and Shane and the filmmakers will be there to talk about their movie, which won the Prairie Spirit Award. We give an award to each year to a movie that kind of embodies the region, the spirit of the upper Midwestern plains here in North Dakota, and that was the one.
Is this premiering here?
It's not a premiere. It's been the filmmakers released it to a few select festivals, and so I believe that Sean Kaufman screened it in the North Dakota Human Rights Film and Arts Festival already, and it may have played in Bismarck publicly as well. But we're in a sense we're kind of it's a Fargo Film Festival premiere, and one of our showcases. We expect to have a really great turnout for that. A lot of people curious to see what, and it's obviously more than just the issue related to his photo of Greta Thunberg. This is about his journey as an artist, figuring out how to do an old process of still photography, wet plate photography, and he's now he's shot thousands and thousands of these plates over the years, and his studio's booked out like 9 months in advance.
Are you ready for some picketers outside of the festival?
Anything could happen. We've had controversial films before. Another thing that's great about film festivals in general, and the Fargo Film Festival, we're not afraid to allow we don't endorse the positions politically of these films, but the public can come and see them and make up their own minds. One of the things that our emeritus executive director Margie Bailey loved to do was build panel presentations around content that was highly controversial. We've had, for example, their medically themed documentaries have been a staple at our festival for almost the entire 20 years. So showing a movie on, say, Lyme disease, and then having people, participate in that panel that represent different viewpoints is, it can get, it's respectful. It can get heated, but it's respectful.
Right. And I think that's the nice thing, is that you're giving it time and people can come and make up their own mind after they watch it. I do also just enjoy the fact that there are people out there who go like, I'm gonna picket this thing because I don't believe in global warming, and I'm gonna make a statement and be like, but you haven't even watched what the documentary is about. Like, you don't even know what this is. You're essentially going out there and picketing photography.
Yeah,
I would say please picket, because that is both an incredible compliment to the filmmakers, but also fantastic publicity for them. The notion that anyone has that I'm going to stop this thing by going outside, screaming about it with my sign and paying attention to it. It's like, please do. Yeah. And my favorite story about that is always the Kevin Smith's Dogma story, where he sees at his local, in Red Bank, I guess, some people were going to picket. And so he joined the picketers and pretended to be someone else. And even the news crew, who felt like they thought they recognized him in the moment, didn't recognize him enough to not get him on TV. So I love that kind of thing. So please, if you're going to picket, go for it. Just be nonviolent. Yeah. Just be nonviolent, but picket.
No, nobody's probably going to picket Thursday night. We have our special guest, Ryan Hullings. He is the senior audio producer and restoration expert for the Criterion Collection. And so movie lovers who are into collecting, physical media and hanging on to that will want to come out and see Ryan, who gives a presentation on his own work, figuring out how to best present the audio in Bob Dylan's Don't Look Back, the Beatles' Hard Day's Night, the Who's Quadrophenia, and the Talking Heads' and David Byrne's True Stories.
I gotta hit that. Oh my goodness.
It's so cool. He this is what he does for a living, is he figures out how to restore audio so that it sounds the way that the filmmakers originally intended it to sound. And it may seem like a little bit in the weeds, that it's a deep dive. And I think that is part of it. But I know that Ryan can make this all accessible. So if you're a rock music lover, if you are a movie fan and collector, and certainly we know all the Criterion people will be there, this will be a really fun night.
Shout out to Dean Syme. This sounds like something you got to hit,
did,
man.
I told Dean about it when we first knew that Ryan was coming, and said, this is up your alley. So I hope Dean and Lori can make it out that night. I don't think they're out of town for a different festival this year. They were at Big Ears, I think, last year. So,
well, and if somebody is unfamiliar, the Criterion Collection is a curated collection of film and television and animation, where they have just done an amazing job making sure that these movies are preserved and presented.
You look for that C. You're at Barnes & Noble. You look for the C in the corner.
Well, and I know people who say, gosh, one of my favorite movies of all time, got just a crap DVD release, and it's full screen stretched, and they're waiting. And so people write into the folks at Criterion all the time saying, would you please find a way to put this out there?
Right. Yeah. The Criterion is a leader in the restoration of content, both for ultimately theatrical screenings, but for home destinations on home video. And I have been, like you, a longtime fan, since inception. They pioneered the concept, really, of supplementary audio program, SAP, or what we call audio commentaries on home video. So for film geeks who wanted a kind of education on a disc, that's what was provided when they were doing their Laserdisc audio commentaries with, on movies like Taxi Driver, I remember, was curated and hosted, made up of interviews with Paul Schrader and Martin Scorsese. And it was just like, it was so eye-opening at that time. Now, every studio does audio commentaries, and some of them aren't particularly well produced. It's just play the movie and talk and see what happens. But Criterion always, figures out a way to produce those so that they have value added.
You've listened to the Goonies commentary, right?
Yeah, I did.
Where like at one point, like they've made fun of, who are they making fun of? It's
one of the cast members,
yeah,
one of the fellow who couldn't be there.
No,
or were they there?
I feel like they were there. They make a joke about Sean Astin's going out to like, he's got to go film his Elf movie or whatever it was. But I feel like there's a cast member who's constantly making fun of in that, because it's a video, it's audio, but then they have a little video, and somebody leaves. Like they're so offended by the end of it that they leave.
I need to revisit that one, because there are some great. I think if you Googled some of the best audio commentaries or most entertaining, you'd find a whole trove. I remember the film Rules of Attraction.
Great commentary.
They had Carrot Top.
Mm-hmm.
They hired Carrot Top to come in. He'd never seen the movie.
Watching it for the first time.
He's doing watching the first time, a cold talk through, which worked pretty well. And then another good example would be Paul Thomas Anderson on Boogie Nights. He had the cast do one sober, then they got drunk and did one drunk, so you can pick between the two.
Yeah, the Trey Parker and Matt Stone, when
Cannibal the
musical, they get drunk during it. And so it starts, and you're actually getting a lot of really interesting insight, because they were still college kids. They didn't have a deal with Comedy Central yet.
Wow.
They hadn't even made the Frosty short animated thing yet, but they were able to. They filmed it on, I think, 16, and they went through a whole process to do it. So it's really interesting at the start, but by the end of it, they're farting into the microphone, because they're taking shots every time a kind of a thing happens.
Yeah.
I also give a shout out to the Gremlins. There's both a production commentary where it's Joe Dante with like the puppeteers and the special effects, but it's also one with the cast, and it's interesting because it's at an era where, they talk about Steven Spielberg watching the dailies and sending a note about like, well, you should do this. And, how awful some of those sets smelled because, working with puppets takes so much.
Yeah.
It's just and Joe Dante is such a lover of, we talk about this in the intro a little bit, such a lover of classic cinema. So all the things he used to work in there,
right.
You getting Robbie the robot, to have a piece in there. H.G. Wells' Time Machine and stuff, little sight gags, and in getting Chuck Jones to do a cameo in it.
Right.
And he's sitting there and he talks about like waiting for the audience to have this huge reaction, and nobody knows what Chuck Jones really looks like. And so he goes, it's really unfortunate because nobody knows what's happening.
Only for hardcore geeks. Yeah. I saw this is actually, it seems like a sidebar, but it's really going to be, I'm going to bring it back to the Fargo Film Festival. You were saying, now, JJ, are you a Blu-ray only, or have you gone all the way to 4K at home?
I've gone to 4K, but I'm really picking and choosing what I'm purchasing in 4K. It's gotta give me a reason to upgrade
from a previous version. Yeah. I have a handful of titles that I upgrade no matter what. So Stanley Kubrick movies, I own 7 or 8 different versions. And so I did get 2001 and The Shining, the 4K editions of those. But I know, Tucker, you were suggesting that like as a format, it's better to have a file from a Blu-ray and then like kind of preserve your Blu-ray. Am I getting that right?
Well, it's been easier to do that with Blu-ray discs up until now.
Yeah.
Where when 4K discs came out, they hadn't been reverse engineered enough yet where it was easy to rip them. So the nice thing with a Blu-ray is that at the very least, you can rip a really high quality digital file. And even on my 4K TV at home, it does such a great job because all it's really doing is it's not really resampling or anything. A 4K monitor can display a good 1080p signal beautifully, and you wouldn't notice really things like artifacting. So it's a good minimum backup. Very rarely do I back up an SD DVD. I only do it if it's not available on Blu-ray, because I know with the Blu-ray I'm going to get a higher quality conversion from the print, but not always. However, now 4K discs can be ripped. Yeah. And so but
they take up more space,
they take up more space, but my reasoning behind whether or not I rip something in 4K, or even if I rip something in Blu-ray, is do I have a connection to this particular title that I would feel the desire to? So at the moment, I don't own anything in 4K. I don't even own any discs. I don't have a 4K player.
Right.
But what I'd probably do is I probably wouldn't even get a 4K player, or I'd get one that can rip so that I own the 4K disc.
Yep.
But the discs, I don't find them to be beautiful. I don't find them interesting. So I don't put them on my shelf. Whereas I find CDs and vinyl interesting. So I'll actually put them on my shelf, but there's nothing about a Blu-ray disc or a DVD disc case that I want to keep on the shelf. So that's just a kind of media that I might keep a physical copy of it, but not on display.
Yeah, we've talked. I know maybe even on this show with when Mike and Val visited, I know that conversations about being an archivist and preserving and hanging on to content is something that is of deep interest to me.
Oh, yeah.
And on Thursday we have lunch panels. I think we're doing 3 of them this year. And more information will be coming out on the festival's website. One of the panels is going to include Scotty Nolan, who was here on the show, and Ryan Hullings from Criterion, and I'm going to join them and talk about some of these concerns, streaming versus the continuation of physical media. Why doesn't Criterion do 4K content? We know they're scanning and preserving and getting the films ready, but they haven't done any physical releases yet in that format.
It gets really confusing when you talk about resolutions, because we have this notion that once you go up in resolution, that means you're adding visual quality. But in reality, you really visually can't really resolve anything more that's tightly packed than a 2K image. Once you're getting into 4K and 8K, you're really just talking about the physical size of maybe like a TV set or something, but it all ends up resolving the same. It ultimately really does. And that resolution is not just pixel density, but also it comes down to the clarity of the image and how it's shot. So there's all sorts of examples now, and you can find them readily available online, where they do a comparison of a 2K camera and a 4K camera and a 6K camera. And you cannot visually tell the difference between the two. The reason you would shoot in a higher resolution means you get some more options in post-production, or if you think it's going to be resolving on a giant screen, it's easier to resolve it clearly as long as the aspect ratio of your footage matches the aspect ratio of the medium you're displaying it on. But now we're talking about resolutions that if we went up another resolution, the eyeball wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So now what we're probably going to be seeing, I'm guessing, as we go forward, are going to be things that call themselves higher resolution, but really what the changes they're making is they're able to get higher resolutions with smaller file sizes, so that you'd be able to get a comparable 4K video at 1 gigabyte instead of 50 gigabytes, which is probably what it would be if you were to rip one right now.
Yeah. I think this idea of file size is what it comes down to, because of how portable they might be, how easy it would be to email it or put it in your Dropbox or share it. That's one of the factors if you're an archivist and you're trying to track down. Because what the statistic that fascinates me the most is that more home video content was available on VHS than was subsequently made available on DVD, and then it's the funnel continues to get smaller.
Right, you can only get King of Kong: A Fistful of Quarters on standard definition DVD right now. It's never been released on Blu-ray.
There are thousands of examples like that where collectors, again, like Mike, who need to go and find certain material on VHS that it's only available on VHS.
But also for Mike, he actually really enjoys the aesthetic that VHS presents. So he's also buying tapes that are available in 4K currently. If they are available on VHS, he'll buy them.
Which to me is interesting, because I think that if you ever see somebody who says, oh, this is one of my favorite movies as a kid, and they watch it, they're like, this movie's really crappy. But if you watched it on a VHS tape, you might have more of an affinity for it, because the effects, it's not as clear. So you can forgive the Garbage Pail Kids movie a little bit because you're not seeing all the seams.
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot.
My favorite version of Blade Runner is on SD DVD because of that.
This conversation you guys just had is the type of conversation someone can enjoy at the Fargo Film Festival.
That's very true. And thank you for wheeling it back around.
Yeah.
Because horror, now we'll transition to our horror night, and horror fans will want to come on Friday to meet Mark Patton, who was the actor who appeared in the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. And he is the subject of a feature-length documentary called Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, which dealt with the kind of cultural presence and treatment of homophobia at the time when that movie was made. And so he was trying to figure it all out. And it's I have not seen this film, but I'm really looking forward to meeting Mark Patton and seeing the movie on the big screen with an audience. I'm a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. And I remember when I saw Freddy's Revenge, I watched that on VHS. At my grandpa and grandma's house. I mowed the lawn one Saturday afternoon, and then I watched Freddy's Revenge.
Yes.
So you have all those like weird memories of certain films, like being in particular places.
I remember renting the movie Out of Africa from the Cormorant store in Cormorant Village, Minnesota, and popping it in. And halfway through, someone had recorded over part of the tape with a speedboat like race, not like a home video, like a Budweiser presents the speediest boats in the bay, and thinking like, well, geez. And so when it came back to the movie, I said, I gotta be honest, I'm totally lost. I don't know who's this guy, what's happening with Meryl right now, what's going on.
That's a great story.
It is. And when we brought it back, we said someone taped over this, and the girl couldn't have cared any less.
Right.
She just put it right back up on the wall. And I said, there's going to be a whole generation of people who won't know what happened in this 15 minutes of this movie.
I had a copy of Karate Kid, and I showed it to my good friend Jim Shans. To this day, he feels guilty because we watched it in this dinosaur of a VCR in his parents' house, and he pressed the wrong button, and they had this weird, it was an audio insert button. And so it recorded about 5 to 10 seconds of a golf match over the part when Miyagi is teaching Daniel out in the boat.
Oh, no.
And so whenever we would watch it, it would be like, it would come up to, you remember the music, and then all of a sudden it would be like, we're looking at a par 4 here on this. And so again, movies become personal.
Yeah.
They become very personal.
For the longest, one of my favorite movies of all time is the first Ninja Turtles movie. It might have been the first movie I saw in the theater, but for the longest time, the version that we had at home was my dad must have rented it and then tried to make a copy on another VHS tape. But I remember it jumped and actually missed a scene, and there was like a small section of the scene at the farm that I didn't see forever because this copy that we had would jump.
Yeah.
And he wasn't trying to cut anything out. I think he accidentally may have stopped and started the transfer. But yeah, I wish I could track down that copy, because if I could track down that copy, I would use all my equipment that I use for backing up VHS tapes, and I would make a copy of that one.
Yeah.
So I could always revisit the jump that I grew up watching.
Well, and back in the day when they were trying to figure out advertising and like how to sell advertising on VHS tapes, I remember my Ninja Turtles 2 tape, I think, has a Pizza Hut ad at the beginning of this kid like at a ball game, and he catches the ball and then he gets rewarded by going to Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
The Batman tapes where they produced a Batman commercial where Alfred is talking to like a general store talking about how Batman was coming to pick up.
Those are great.
It's a black car, you can't mistake it.
Yeah.
And so even the commercials that were included on some of these VHS tapes become something, it makes me, if I think of Pizza Hut, I'm like, Pizza Hut commercial. I used to watch Ninja Turtles too. So Friday night is a huge night, and it's a good example of one of the reasons why coming to a film festival is different than just going to see a movie at the theater, because you get this Q&A with it. You get the opportunity to not only watch the documentary, but to ask questions that you still might have, or to hear a little more in-depth things that made it on the cutting room floor. And that is one of the things that Fargo Film Festival has really shined at over the years.
I agree. We have a large representation of filmmakers at the festival, and they travel from all over the place, sometimes internationally. More often than not, we have filmmakers who come from outside the United States just to, and they might be touring to several other film festivals, but they are here in Fargo to talk. They're thrilled to talk to people who are interested in what they've made.
I can't remember the name of the gentleman. It was he was Spanish, non-English speaking, and then having to find a translator at the last second became an issue. And I remember one day he was confused about where he was going, and so he ended up sitting and having lunch with the other theater employees, and so he was enjoying this chili my mom had made and brought in for us, and we were trying our hardest just to be like, let's break down this language barrier. And he told us in Spanish how he had made his film, and listening to the Spanish but having him use his hand motions was so amazing, and it's an experience that you're only going to have at something like a film festival.
That's great. The 2-minute movie contest is back, and that'll be Friday night after.
How many years have you been doing this now?
Nearly since the beginning. So before it was called the 2-minute movie contest, John Lamb my friend John Lamb named it UFTA style, Underground Film Fest Dakota style. It was an off-the-cuff quip, and we would show 16 millimeter ephemeral films and have. We had hip hop artists and other kind of loop installations and things at the old Moose Lodge. And so fairly early on, Margie and I met, and she said, let's get together on this. And it sort of evolved from being solely at the Moose Lodge to being in whatever second venue space the Fargo Film Festival was using that year. So we were in the basement of the old Strauss building on Broadway for a while. We were in the over at the old chapel,
the Ivers,
at the Ivers on the upstairs, and then downstairs they actually had panels in the old embalming room,
which is you'd have
awesome.
lunch. Like, it was great.
Serve lunches in the embalming room. So we would take advantage of those second venue spaces until the smaller screen in the Fargo Theater was made available. So I missed those. The very first year of the festival, it was at the Cinema Grill, the old Lark. And we used that space for a couple years where you'd set up and I remember, you had movies, both of you in the 2-minute going way back, even in the earliest years when you could walk in with a VHS tape. And it was sight unseen. We would pop it in, and then you had a timer. And so we didn't even know what we were programming. It was just show up. That's how kind of evolutionarily interesting it was.
It really did open the door, though, because if you thought, gosh, I'm a 16-year-old kid, I can't pay to submit, or I don't know anybody who can help me get in here, you could still get played in a festival, and have a great time doing it.
And it's just evolved to have, we tried to retain that ethos so that there's still a lot of movies made by local kids and of all ages, elementary and up. And then we have world-class, professionally produced animation and nonfiction. We've even played the shortest movie ever to be Oscar nominated, which is by the stop-motion animator who goes by the handle Pez. And it's the one where an avocado is being chopped up, but then whenever on each stroke it like turns into dice or other really cool physical objects in the frame. It's sort of like this little stop motion dance, sort of the thing you would see on Sesame Street when you're a little kid. That style, which is really cool. So we're showing I think our reel this year came in. It's under 50 films total. And not all of them are 2 minutes. It can be 2 minutes or less, of course. And so they're just shown one right after another. And there are people who, there are some filmmakers who are even traveling from out of state just to come and be at the 2 minute, which I was like, wow, that's different.
It's very cool. It's very cool. Okay, so take us up to so that's a Friday night, right? And so Saturday, what are we going to see on Saturday?
Saturday is another, because it's the weekend and more audience can come in who don't have to take any work off. Saturday has a Saturday morning session of cartoons for grown-ups, which is a whole animation block of some great stuff. And then in the afternoon, we're presenting the Ted M. Larson Award, the highest honor that the festival bestows on our friend Tom Brandow, who taught for many years at MSUM in the film studies program. And he will be there to receive the honor in person. And then on Saturday evening, we will end with, we show the winner of the 2 minute movie contest. We have another festival award that goes to our it's named after Margie Bailey. It's volunteer spirit, and that'll be given to our very good friend Jenny Jensen, and jointly with Peg O'Neill, who sadly died last year, and she was one of everybody's favorite human beings at the festival and outside the festival. But she was a face that all of us who were in the festival family saw on different committees and worked with over the years. And she and Jenny were our best friends and were just totally inseparable. So that'll be a really emotional moment that all of us who work on the festival, 75 plus people, are really looking forward to. And then go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's important to note too that the Ted M. Larson Award isn't given every year. It is a special award that is handpicked when someone has deserved it. And could you talk about that a little bit, and then a little bit too, if no one has heard of Ted M. Larson and his impact on a festival now celebrating its 20th birthday?
Definitely, yeah. The Ted Larson Award is named after the longtime professor of film studies at MSUM, kind of the pioneer of college level education in film. He was doing it here in the Upper Midwest at a time when you rarely found it outside of the coasts. Credit bearing coursework to study and learn about the movies. And he was my mentor. He was Rusty Castleton's mentor. He taught generations of students at MSUM. He was part of the planning during the original incarnation of that first year preparing for the Fargo Film Festival, and he died unexpectedly in November of 2000 before the first Fargo Film Festival happened. And so Rusty and Margie thought, what can we do here? And they jointly created the Ted M. Larson Award, which is given to a person who has demonstrated a kind of career's commitment to film education, film production, or, kind of film culture, criticism and analysis. And that first year, they thought who would be the right recipient to bestow the honor. And it was Leonard Maltin, who good friends with Rusty and Ted, and he wasn't able to come to Fargo, but recorded a video greeting. We've had this happen a few times with recipients of the award, where if they can't come, they'll record a video greeting. But rather than just today, it would be so simple. You would just upload, you just make available the clip. At this point in time, 20 years ago, Leonard Maltin sent a tape, and when Rusty reviewed the tape, Leonard Maltin was in a studio, the studio I'm sure where he was doing his tapings for Entertainment Tonight. And he did, it was like several takes. It was like raw, it was unedited footage that lasted about 10 minutes of him communicating with the director off screen, and then like kind of doing 3 or 4 runs at it. And that was fascinating to me, because Rusty thought, well, this isn't, we have to prep this isn't cut. So he asked me if I would pick the best take and get that ready to screen at the festival. So I was I felt like a lucky kid to be able to do it, because I got to go through this and just sort of see the sausage being made, Leonard Maltin in the studio and figuring out like which one. And since then, a lot of well-known people have received and accepted the honor. George Romero, John Waters, but also people who work, Janet Leigh, but people who worked with Ted. And so we alternate often between people with whom Ted had a relationship, and then people who Ted would have loved to have entertained had he still been here with us. And so we kind of, it's not necessarily an every other year thing, but a lot of educators, I love film education, as you know, it's what I do. And so it's really special for us to be able to give it to our friend Tom Brandow this year.
And I think it's incredibly fitting, because Tom has taught and mentored and tutored people who are going on and now preaching the gospel about the Fargo Film Festival, because they're working in the industry now.
So great. Yeah. Many examples fit into that category. And because of Tom, we've had the thrill of hosting Mike Flanagan, whose career could not be any more stratospheric right now. I mean, he directed Dr. Sleep this last year and is doing, The Haunting of Hill House for Netflix and doing so many incredible things. And he was one of Tom's students who on whom Tom made a huge impact. And that Tom was not my teacher. He was my colleague, but he was Emily's teacher and mentor. He was Mike Strominger and Tom Spear from the film festival's teacher and mentor, and so many.
My wife.
So your wife's mentor. I mean, so many people interacted with and learned from Tom. So it's the timing is perfect. We're super excited about it.
People, I think sometimes think, well, I can't be there through the whole time. I've got to pick and choose when I can be there. Like you said, some people have jobs that don't understand, like, I'm taking the rest of the week off to go to a film festival.
And some people do.
Yeah.
This is their staycation.
Yeah, some people have saved up all of this so that they can go see a movie and then get drunk on a Tuesday night and then enjoy movies on Wednesday. What's really great is the price tiers on this are awesome too. If you want to go to a single session, you can buy a single session.
Yeah.
If you need a pass, it's going to get you into
Yes.
multiple sessions.
Yes.
You can do that. And when you compare the pricing at the Fargo Film Festival to what other film festivals, I mean, you just got back from Sundance.
Right.
I imagine when you tell people how much the Fargo Film Festival costs, they go like, oh, is that for like the bathroom key? Nope. You get an entire festival's worth.
Yeah, it is great, and because the festival's been committed to students and building audience and trying to bring young people in, we have those. Individual sessions are only $5 any session for a student, and the 2-minute movie contest is $2. If you're just coming to see that. Of course, if you want to see the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, you can stay for the 2-minute. But you're absolutely right. It's all the way up to the full meal deal, the full festival pass. These tickets go on sale on the 24th, so they'll be on sale by the time this is broadcast. But this is the first year we're going to make these tickets and passes available for sale through a link online, as well as in person at the Fargo Theater. So you can go to the box office whenever it's open to get tickets as well.
Oh, that's great.
Tickets at the door too.
Other things. Okay, so have you sat on almost every single
over time? I've been
committee?
on every jury.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I've chaired most of them at different times. My favorite, the one I'm linked with historically, is animation, but Sean Volk's been doing an incredible job on animation for the last couple years. So I served with jury. The jury chair was Mike Strominger, and I was on narrative short this year, and that category is phenomenal. I mean, we have 2 of the Oscar nominated films from this year are in the category. So we had 4 Oscar nominees total this year. It's just amazing.
And those are chosen before the nominees even come out. So like
we don't even know.
You really see the quality.
Yeah, you can see the quality, and it does speak to because of the timing of the Fargo Film Festival. We are, a lot of the people who go to film festivals and study the circuit and what's available will have their eye on things, and they may reach out to filmmakers and say, will you consider submitting your work? It's a juried film festival, so each jury has 7 to 11 or so members who have to watch all the films that are submitted in that category, and then based on the number of available minutes they have to program, that they choose their slate from that.
So how many hours are going into, let's say, narrative short? Okay, so let's say you sit on narrative short. How many hours of content are you watching, trying to whittle it down to what ends up getting programmed?
I think the feature categories have the most number of minutes to watch, even if it's fewer titles, but narrative short and student have the largest number of individual titles to look at. So it takes hours. You're talking about quite a few hours of preparation to see everything you need to see before you get together with your jury, and then you're deliberating, you're making your case, there's many different ways that the balloting process works, but it's in each case, the jury chair is charged with making sure that it's a fair and equitable process where everybody's voice is heard, and you try to achieve consensus. In the case of The Neighbor's Window this year on narrative short, that was a unanimous decision for our category winner, even though I saw another half dozen films that are sensational. I mean, they're as good as any feature I saw in the theater last year.
What about the process of actually submitting to the Fargo Film Festival?
We use Film Freeway without a box, which was a company. It was the first and for a long time only online submission platform. Was purchased by Amazon, IMDb, and they are in the process of shutting down operations as a clearinghouse for connecting filmmakers with film festivals. So Film Freeway is going to be really the only game in town, and they do a great job of making a simple, elegant, and easy to use interface between a filmmaker who's submitting their work and then the people being able to log in and then watch that film. It used in the old days, you talk about a 20-year anniversary, we had to make dubs of VHS tapes enough to share around so that all the jurors could see them. That was one of my first jobs with the Fargo Film Festival. Starting with the first year, Rusty would just bring like a box of tapes in and say, you need to make 3 copies of each of these. And I would do it at MCAT, at Moorhead Community Access Television, to to have enough so that the jurors could see them. Then we went to a period of time where we would all get together in a room and watch them. For the short juries, we would watch the films together, which is very fun to do, interesting, because you would have differences of opinion. And then nowadays, most film festivals will use this system where you log in and watch the movie on your own time and make notes on it, and just so that you have if you have 50, 60 films in your category to watch, it's gonna, you're not going to do that in one day. It's going to take you several weeks.
Then all the people get together and you have a discussion as a group. Then right.
Yep,
Wow.
led by the jury chair, and each jury kind of operates a little bit differently, based on the amount of content they have, the way they want to handle discussion, just to make sure that everybody's, again, we want the jurors who represent a wide range of backgrounds. Some people are, more professionally inclined towards either film education or working in exhibition, working with the movies, to people who are just fans. And we want, we try to thread the needle so that there's content there that Emily's golden rule is that if a person were to come in to any session, they would see and they had to see any random one of these 100 or so movies, that it would be a good reflection on the overall quality of content that we program. And that's been an arc of change over the years, where we went from fewer entries and more regional and local content to now Oscar nominees, international content, stuff that's on the cusp of getting distribution deals, being sold, eventually making its way to you on Netflix, etc.
So 20 years deep into this, it's got to be amazing, because people who submitted student films in the first Fargo Film Festival are now industry standards. And they're people who are making major decisions, and they're making enormous movies that are making millions of dollars. And it's got to be it's got to be neat to say, okay, so this year at the 20th, who's submitting a film today who 20 years from now at the 40th will be coming back to receive an award.
I love that. It's one of the things I love about the 2-minute and kids making movies, and just watching anybody who has ever desired to pick up a device that can record sound and image and then edit something together. It's just you can see the future in even the most kind of crudely made, rough around the edges cell phone video. And I love those movies just as much as I do the polished Oscar nominees.
One of my favorite memories of the Fargo Film Festival is early on. I mean, it must have been 2002, maybe even 2003. I went to a midnight showing of student films, and there's nobody else in there. And then all of a sudden this girl...
I was around there somewhere.
Probably, yeah. But I mean, I'm sitting in the main house and there's nobody else in there. And a girl who I really liked from high school showed up, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that you like movies." And we sat together, and it wasn't a date, but I definitely went up a couple notches, like in her book, as like this cool thing.
Yeah, you were a person of taste.
Right. And I got to see a couple of movies that have stuck with me ever since. One of them, previous guest, in our twin episode, I got to see After School Special for the first time.
Yes.
And it started a love affair with the name Large Ephraim,
Large Ephraim.
as a name of a bully.
Yep,
I also
bully.
got to see one that was filmed inside of your house,
Yep,
where
sure.
someone was definitely working through some personal emotions in it. But
Many have been shot in Greg's
Many,
former house.
including some parts of After School Special.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I think you're talking about Donkey Punch.
Is that
by
the one
Scott
like a
Stengram.
big plate of bacon?
Yeah,
like,
I think that's the one.
And I
think
will
that's the
remember
one.
that one for a
Yeah,
long
it's
time.
good.
And I had an experience in the Fargo Theater that night that was unlike anything I've ever had before, which, ignited it. The casual moviegoer, I think of someone like my sister who goes and sees a movie probably once a month at most.
Yeah.
And it's whatever people are talking about right now, or she says, oh, I saw Thor, so I could probably see Endgame and be just fine. Those people can go to a film festival and think, oh, I know movies, and be completely enveloped in this group of people who live and breathe celluloid and digital files, and have like a Plex account that is so well curated, it's insane.
That's the goal for sure.
Yeah.
And they can get an entirely new perspective on loving movies and loving cinema. And so I think the work that you guys do is amazing.
Thank you. I love that story of being there and seeing something that as a kid you say, oh, maybe I could do this even. That is so thrilling. And that's why I love do-it-yourself movie making, you don't have to have a huge budget and a giant crew and the fanciest toys and cameras and lenses. You just have to have the desire to share a story with someone. And so After School Special, Donkey Punch, all Peephole View by Matt McGregor, all these student works that show ambition and storytelling chops that are way beyond the budgets reflected on screen.
Well, I just think about
love
Toby
those.
Jones.
Toby Jones,
I mean,
a great,
Toby's
great
the
example.
best example I can think of.
Yeah, his some of his 2 minutes are legend.
They are, absolutely. And
So
his trilogy, come on, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
even the love letter, the Raiders, the guys who recreated Raiders
They
of the
were
Lost
one of
Ark,
the best
shot for
opening
shot.
nights we ever had.
That was such an amazing night because it really pulled everything together. Like for those of you who don't know, these kids made a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark because they loved
Absolutely.
it so much. It
Chris Strampolos and
Oh,
Eric Zala.
God.
Shout out to you.
took them several years. There's a great documentary
Love it.
about it now,
Yes.
where they get to get the final shot, the
Because
one that they needed.
never did the flying wing scene. So you figure, well, we might as well get that in there now, all these years later, because it was shot over so many years that from one cut to another, the age of the actors would change.
Drastically changed.
Love that.
And they talk about almost burning down their mom's house filming the bar scene.
Because they really lit it
They
on
had
fire.
real fire, getting dragged behind a truck, and how like they got hurt pretty bad.
Right.
I love it, and it's so much fun. There's a great book that goes along with it, but watching, so they screened it that night, and what they screened was their remake of it, and they told the story of how, this is something that they made at one point, and then one of them ended up working for, what was it, like LucasArts, the video game division, is, someone low on the totem pole, and showed this one night, like, hey, you want to see something weird? I got this VHS tape. And then that VHS tape got copied and got copied and copied. And finally, someone like shows it to George Lucas and says, like, have you seen this thing that these kids did? And it became, as a kid, you make it because you want to, right?
Yep.
And it's fun and you're having a great moment. But now, as an adult, it is not just a funny video of you as a kid trying to act through this. I am incredibly impressed. We just saw it recently with the kids who did the stop motion Toy Story 3 in real life. Took those kids 8 years to recreate.
Unbelievable commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the Strampolos and Zala got to meet Steven Spielberg, in his office. I think you never probably would have imagined that was a possibility even. But I think sweeting movies is the best, and more people should do that. It's like that story that Hunter Thompson typed out The Great Gatsby word for word so he could get the feel of what it would be like to write a great novel. And I think it's a similar thing that if you have, I don't know if you guys have seen the Star Wars project where everybody could take like 10 seconds or 20 seconds and kind of call for what, and then it's all strung together, Star Wars uncut or something, and it's on, you can see the whole thing online. And I love things like that, because it doesn't matter if you have any money. You can still do it with what you have laying around the house.
It's through film festivals too, like not just the Fargo Film Festival, but the Free Range Film Festival, where you can get access to genres that you actually wouldn't see anywhere else, like mumblecore. Like, it was because of film festivals that I ever knew what mumblecore was. I remember seeing Lena Dunham before she was Lena Dunham, and watching me like, wow, this is incredibly awkward but interesting. I can't.
Right. Shout out to our friends at Free Range. They programmed Lena Dunham long before she made tiny furniture.
Well before. And but I am with you in that I don't need something to be on beautiful 35 millimeter with a giant budget to find it interesting. It's not that which makes it interesting. It's the content itself. So you can find something shot on VHS like that Raiders remake that's incredibly interesting, and it doesn't have, like you said, the budget, the makeup, the artists that you would normally see. You could watch a movie that was made for $200 million and it'd be far less interesting than something that gets made on someone's cell phone. It just depends on the artist.
In the student category, we show movies that are made, but any student at any level can submit in that category. And so you have regional schools like MSUM that has a really, storied reputation as a good place to learn the nuts and bolts of movie making, all the way up to Chapman, USC, NYU. We have 2 AFI fellows works in the festival this year. So really outstanding stuff. One year, the winner in the student category was this beautiful movie called OSHA Cups for Christmas, and it was shot in Japan. I want to say it was from USC. It was from one of the Southern California film schools, and it was stunning, and it deserved. I mean, I loved it. But the honorable mention, it might have been an honorable mention, was made by an MSUM guy named Dan Dolans, who I think currently lives in Bismarck. And he made a movie called A Short Story about a guy who was preoccupied with his perception of not being tall enough in the world. And it was so funny and good and well put together. And I remember I helped. I was working at MSUM at the time, and I kind of helped him see that through. And the lead performance was so winning. And afterwards, Tony McRae, who's a Ted M. Larson Award recipient and taught film classes in the French department at Concordia for many, many years, he came up to me and said, "Who made that short story? That movie." Moved me. And we got into this conversation about, OSHA Cups being shot with a big budget and a professional crew on location in Japan versus something that was done, in a DIY fashion. And he was saying, they're both great films, but, this one, A Short Story has just as much heart and soul.
Well, and you've got filmmakers like Michel Gondry who actually embrace, even Wes Anderson to a level, who embrace the vibe of that. They'll put it into the context of a big budget movie, but all of that youthful attitude about creativity goes into their pieces, which I find very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember this one? I think it was called After the Credits. And it's about, it shows you like the last minute of a romantic comedy where the guy runs and grabs a girl right before she gets on a plane and she's moving to Fiji. That was one where I remember seeing that and thinking like, I need to go and, put a check mark next to these names on IMDb, because this is one of the most incredibly creative thoughts. And I think those people went on to create a couple television shows. And it just, again, goes to show that it's Fargo, North Dakota, but this is really an international film festival that showcases the best of what we have right next door, as well as what we've got, thousands of miles away.
Before we run out of time, I have to plug the last film we're showing in the festival is called International Falls, and it's a feature-length comedy by Amber McGinnis. Director Amber McGinnis will be there in person, and it's got the vibe of, it's perfect for Fargo because it's got the sort of vibe of the, frozen International Falls, Minnesota, the frozen north, and it's about a woman who is feeling a little trapped or stuck in a loveless marriage, and she has a fling with a stand-up comic who's performing at the hotel where she works, and it is really it's really entertaining and worth checking out. And so that is going to be the closing night film this year. Amber McGinnis will be at the festival.
And it's great too because there are after parties where you get the right pass and you go to some of these after parties and pre-parties.
Yeah.
If you say I don't know what to do, there's no time, it's like, no, you're not reading your program right.
Yeah, and it should be, you can go to the website now and see the complete schedule, so what days are showing what films and when, and then again, we mentioned, the tickets will be on sale, and under the tickets tab, you can see the breakdowns of which kind of pass you want to buy and what other events you might want to attend. In addition to these movies at the theaters, there's luncheon panels, there's, as you mentioned, parties taking place, and just people getting together a lot. If you're around the theater, you can find groups of people to join in the conversation. Oh, I would say more of our volunteers have come from just being fans who attended the festival than from any other category.
Very cool. And give us the website. Give us the actual website.
It is just fargofilmfestival.org and fargofilmfestival.com. Either one will get you there.
And it's great to monitor that throughout the entire year. You guys do a great job. Like, it's not just for 1 week in March; it's a whole year round.
Yeah, we try to keep things updated. Obviously, there's a period when we're watching a lot of content as juries that we're not posting as much, but we have a Twitter handle which is just Fargo Film Fest, and then also our Facebook page as well is one where a lot of people get information about what's going on. We create events for each of the major showcase nights.
Also, it's the best popcorn at any film festival I've ever been to. And like,
true.
In Chicago, they use a lot of like big theaters like AMC, and I've got a beef with AMC because they don't use finely grounded salt. They use like actual crystallized salt. But the best popcorn at any film festival is found at the Fargo Theater and the Fargo Film Festival. Greg, thank you so much for being here. And again, fargofilmfestival.org or fargofilmfestival.com. Get your passes, check it out. There's so much great stuff. Go on there, read about the films you're seeing, find out the filmmakers who are coming here, and then go and have a blast. A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today, because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews, and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. I submitted a film to Fargo Film Festival that didn't get chosen this year. It's called JJ Rides a Bike, and it's about a poor kid in Lebanon who has to learn how to ride a bike. And they said, "Sir, we are not accepting videos on Laserdisc anymore."